Okay, so what happened between Kuwait and Iraq? Well, in August the 2nd of 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait. They occupied the country. Around October of 1990, Saddam Hussein told the people in Kuwait they had until, I believe it was October the 3rd, to exchange their Kuwaiti dinars for the Iraqi dinars. After that, the Kuwait dinars wouldn't have any value. As soon as Iraq invaded Kuwait, both currencies immediately were devalued. Kuwait's dinar was devalued to protect it from being stolen and sold on the black market. Iraqi dinars were devalued because of the invasion. The Iraqi dinar at the time was worth $3.22. In other words, for every one Iraqi dinar, you could exchange it for $3.22 US dollars. The Kuwait dinar, you can exchange one Kuwait dinar and get $3.45 US dollars. So the Kuwait dinar was a little bit more valuable. Saddam Hussein on his own decided that he would just go ahead and make his dinars equal in value. Although a country had that purchasing power internationally, the currencies were not usable. Central banks refused to acknowledge the currency, and therefore it had no value. The United States liberated Kuwait at the end of February, the February 28th of the following year, 1991. And then shortly after that, Kuwait redenominated their currency is what happened. So it's not so much that the currency was revalued as much as it was redenominated, which is a difference. So anyways, you can see that's pretty much what this is telling you right here. It says before Iraq's President Saddam Hussein ordered his army into Kuwait, one Iraqi dinar was worth $3.22. One Kuwaiti dinar traded at $3.45 at official rates. But the Kuwait currency was convertible on international markets while Iraqi dinar was not. The Iraqi currency remains inconvertible today. The decision was also expected to eliminate the black market for the Kuwaiti dinar. Although the Iraqi dinar official value remains the same, its value to buy goods or foreign currency on the black market was about 1/10 the official rate. Iraq punished currency smugglers by death. So you can see right here, it says, in the first days of the invasion, the Kuwait dinar fell from $3.45 to about 1/5 its value before international currency exchanges suspended trading the Kuwaiti currency. It says no banks will accept or quote or trade either Iraq or Kuwaiti dinars. So that's what happened. They were restricted. Now this goes into detail of why it is the Iraqi dinar is not the same as a Kuwait dinar and how you cannot compare the two. It said the Central Bank of Kuwait has preserved the high value of the currency because Kuwait is an oil-rich country with a stable economy. The Kuwaiti dinar has maintained its growth and stability because the country of Kuwait is one of the more prosperous in the world, an oil-rich country with a petroleum-based economy. Kuwait is the fourth most prosperous country on earth per capita and the second richest Gulf Cooperation Council country per capita after Qatar. After Kuwait was liberated from Iraq, its GDP was less than $20 billion. However, by 2014, it had risen to $174 billion. It then experienced a decline because of a drop in global crude oil prices during the next 2 years, and its GDP fell to $110 billion. Kuwaiti's economic stability allows the Central Bank of Kuwait to issue monetary policies that minimize the impact of inflation, encourages economic progress, and progressively improve national income growth. So what does this mean for the Iraqi dinar? You can see right here what this article says. If you have been following dinar recaps, then a dinar guru may have led you to believe that what happened to Kuwait currency will happen to the Iraqi currency. I told you guys many times that they're apples and oranges. Unfortunately, many dinar gurus have convinced investors to have confidence in the Iraqi dinar for all the wrong reasons. One of these includes confusing the concept of the revaluation of the currency with the concept of the redenomination of a currency. This is not the first time that gross inaccuracies show up during dinar's updates. Some dinar gurus have also misled investors by implying that Donald Trump bought Iraqi dinar, but nobody knows whether he did, as news stories only speculated the possibility. Although a revaluation and a redenomination may seem similar on the surface, there are two distinctly different concepts. The Kuwaiti currency surged in value because of a redenomination, not a revaluation, and not because it was reinstated. A redenomination changes the entire series, resetting the entire financial system in one go, which, if Iraq can get back on track, is what I think they're going to do. A central bank will not issue new units, denominations, dinar coins, or devise any other ways to change the value of the currency. So during a revaluation, the central bank would change the value of a currency. However, during a redenomination, the value of a currency is not changed. Instead, the old series is invalidated and a new series issued. In Kuwait, this was necessary because Hussein's government forcibly pegged the Kuwait dinar to the Iraqi dinar, and because Iraqi forces had stolen Kuwait dinars out of the country's central bank. So in summary, in a redenomination, there is no change in value. One series is voided and replaced by another, thus restoring the lost value. In a revaluation, the currency has not changed, but its value has increased. Another major difference between Kuwait dinar and the Iraqi dinar is that the Kuwaiti dinar is pegged to an undisclosed basket of weighted currencies, while the Iraqi government pegs the Iraqi dinar to the world money market. Consequently, the value of the Iraqi dinar is not tightly controlled by the central bank. Instead, the world market determines the value of all floating currencies. So, economic growth. The parallel between Kuwait and Iraq also breaks down when you consider economic growth. While military invasions devastated the economies of both countries, they both responded to the invasion in very different ways. Kuwait chose to rebuild its economy despite the damage inflicted on the oil fields by the Iraqi invasion. Many fires had to be extinguished because Iraqi forces set oil wells ablaze during the invasion. Some of you are probably not even old enough to remember this, but it was a huge eco disaster. As Iraq was leaving Kuwait, they lit up all their oil fields and they burned for months. The sky was dark with smoke. It was terrible. You can actually see on a satellite all the pollution that was coming from the oil wells being lit on fire. It was terrible. So for Kuwait, they rebuild their economies. They rebuild their country is what happened. Iraq has failed to rebuild. The reason for this is not clear. Different sources claim different reasons. Senior Iraqi government officials claim that the U.S. occupation did not follow through with its promise to rebuild Iraq. Contractors misspent millions and wasted a year on ill-conceived engineering projects that accomplished little after 10 years. These bungled projects cost Iraq about $1.5 billion in lost oil revenues. However, other sources claim that the fault lies in the Middle East sectarian divisions that make it difficult to unify the country under a federal government stable enough to rebuild Iraq. So if you mix in all the infighting, all the invasions, ISIS getting there, religious factions, the different political factions, all the protesters in Iraq, it makes it really hard for them to get on track. And this is what I've been preaching to people. People are like, well, they got so much oil, Pimpy, they should be able to get a good value. No, that's not the only thing. A stable country, stable economy, no uprisings, very secure for foreign investors to come in. I mean, there's a lot of factors, I tell you. But yet people choose to listen to all these other people blow smoke up your butt and lie to you. All these things have to be taken into consideration that I spoke about several times. New hope for Iraq. The big takeaway here is that if you're interested in Iraqi dinar RV, base it on the likelihood of an Iraqi reconstruction. We've been talking about this for years now. Iraq needs to get a crack-a-lackin' on their infrastructure. They need to start rebuilding. That's one of the biggest hurdles taking place, preventing the Iraqi dinar from changing its value. Don't do this because you imagine there are sufficient parallels between Kuwait and Iraq to suggest that Iraq might achieve an economic comeback similar to Kuwait. It says with the election of Barham Saleh as the new president and Mahdi as the prime minister after 2018 Iraq parliament elections, the reconstruction of Iraq appears to be more probable than ever before, as both these leaders are determined to end the political partisan and Islamic sectarian squabbles that have prevented Iraq reunification until now. You can tell this article is a little bit older, and we know what's happened since then. Corrupt people got into government. The people were pissed. It was an uprising that happened in October 2019. We saw Mahdi resign. It took a few months, and then all of a sudden we ended up with al-Qadimi. Al-Qadimi was trying to get the country on track, but he was met with a ton of resistance. And now we are here today with this new government, with Soudini as prime minister and Rashid as the president. And to be honest with you, Soudini looks determined to fix Iraq. I was a little worried about him being prime minister because he was an acolyte of Maliki's. And so I was worried that they would just fall in line with all the criminality. That doesn't seem to be the case so far. As a matter of fact, Soudini seems to be moving quickly. Saleh's no longer there. Mahdi resigned. Kadhimi took over. They've done a good job of trying to get Iraq back on track. And then we had this whole fiasco with the election. This is what I'm talking about. Every time Iraq starts to make progress, then something always pops up. Now at least the government's being formed, and it looks like we're trying to get back on track. So why did the Kuwait dinar surge after the Iraqi invasion? Kuwait survived the massive shock to its economy, financial system, and banking industry after the Iraqi occupation because of the sound policies of the Central Bank of Kuwait. Before the invasion, the Central Bank of Kuwait had already established an excellent reputation amongst the banking institutions of the world because the exchange rate of the Kuwait dinar had already been pegged to a weighted basket of currencies. After Kuwait regained its independence, it could restore the value of its currency by rebuilding its economy and reissuing the Kuwait dinar. So instead of squabbling, instead of fighting, instead of protest, Kuwait strapped on their boots and went right at rebuilding their economies, rebuilding their countries, what they did. That didn't happen in Iraq. You know, like I said, with ISIS invading and the U.S. being there, the U.S. occupation shouldn't have kept Iraq from rebuilding. They had the opportunity to do it. It was corruption. The same corrupt people that are there now in power, Maliki and his people. Said the Kuwaiti dinar did not surge in value because of the revaluation after an American-led military coalition ousted Iraqi forces out of Kuwait. Instead, the rebuilding of Kuwait's oil fields and the redenomination of the Kuwaiti dinar restored its value. The only parallel that can be drawn between Iraq currency and the Kuwait dinar is that Iraq could follow the example of Kuwait. Do you hear this? The only thing keeping Iraq back from having the exchange rate of 322 is Iraq. If Iraq develops a robust central bank policy and rebuilds its economy too, an economically strong Iraq will then have the economic stability to sustain a stronger currency. In all of al-Qadimi's time, which is a little over 2 years, only once did he have a budget, and he only had 6 months worth of budget. That's how much crap al-Qadimi had to go through. It was really hard for him. But like I'm saying, al-Soudini seems to be getting everything back on track. So keep your fingers crossed that no more things come in and interfere with the rebuilding of Iraq. Then you can start to see it slowly but surely rebuilding the value of its currency. Having a ton of foreign currency reserves help. Having a ton of gold helps as well. Anyways, that's it for now. I just wanted to show you guys the difference between the two. You guys let me know what you think. I'll look forward to your comments, and I'll catch you later. I'm out.